everyone. So I hope everyone's doing okay and feeling amazing. I wanted to jump on here real fast because this has been playing in my head for a little while, and it's basically some of the most convincing evidence that what the ancients were using involved some form of high technology that was able to literally cut rock any way they wanted. So in this video, you're going to see from the Osirian temple. And basically, if you look in the corners, you'll see how blocks are literally going around, like in an angle. And there's really only one way that you can do this. And the cool thing about these guys, Brothers of the Serpent, which is a great channel, they're amazing, and they work with Ben from Uncharted X a lot. They have knowledge in architecture and construction. So when they see these places, they look at it through the lens of, okay, this is a job site. How am I going to achieve what we need to do, right? Now look at these corners here. These are, perfect angles. And if you were to come up close to those angles, you'd see that it's kind of curved, like they were able to just drill into it, right? And they're gonna go through and show you exactly how you would be able to achieve something like this. I'll just kind of let this play all the way through. And like I said, this is some of the most convincing evidence, and anybody who says that, oh, they just chipped away at this from top down is bullshitting. I think it's high time we all grow up and realize that the ancients had some form of ancient technology. This touches on even like the UFO phenomenon and stuff like that. Like, it's becoming so obvious of what they have been telling us is a complete lie and fabrication to keep us sedated almost, in this fairy tale that we live in, when the true reality of our universe and our world and our ancient past is so much more incredible than what we've been told since we were children, right? This is a full block that, they put in, and it's going to show you right here. And this, like I said, this is the most convincing evidence here. I'll even let it play.
You install your massive limestone core masonry, and then you want to case the interior in granite. So you install the granite blocks, and they have they all fit very well against each other, but they have this sort of puffy, unfinished look to the interior side. And also note, when you're looking at this, none of these granite blocks are going around any corners. They're just sitting up against each other. But here's the actual interior dimensions of this chamber that you want. So you go up on top of the wall, and you drill 4 holes at the corners you want. And then you go down in there with your magic granite scraping removal tool, and you flatten out all these blocks all the way to those corner holes that you've drilled, and then it looks like this, and then you have 4 blocks that go around corners now.
Boom.
Because you've removed all that extra material.
Boom.
So I think this is a pretty good theory on how this effect was achieved. Okay, one more thing to look at before we move on from the Valley Temple is the fineness of the joins. So that's what this picture is illustrating. I've got my hand there. It's right beneath.
Okay, so after seeing that, you have to just kind of ask yourself, like, oh, well, of course they had some form of ancient technology. There's the only way that this could be possible, or else you would do this a different way. You wouldn't do it literally the hardest way known to man, right? Like, on how they're going to achieve this. And the idea of this stone scraping or flattening tool is seen in the Osirian and at the pyramid. Let me see, I'm at 36. Let's see, here we go. This is a good area to show you. Do you see in the corner right here how it's almost curved, like a sand belt or something like that, right? This is what we see all over, and this is how they got the flat look from the puffy look in their granite, right? All right, so let me go back just so you can see the massive sizes of these rocks, these granite blocks. This site here, I think, goes down like 50 feet, and there's water, so you can't really explore it because it's covered in like murky water. But look at that, right? Like, and these blocks were quarried from hundreds of miles away. And they want to tell you that they used wooden rollers to transport these things there when there's no wood located in, Giza, especially back in the attributed time that, the academic and the narrative is. They would have to go into Lebanon to gather their cedar wood and then transport it, 100, whatever amount of miles to get here, or to get to Aswan Quarry, where then they would have to transport it, roll, on the ground, these wooden rollers to the site, which is like 500 miles away, right? And if we're going to talk about this, you got to think about like tensile strength. How strong can this wood actually be under the weight of 100 tons, especially over 100 miles, after a mile of literally grinding wood on the ground, it's going to be dust and you're going to need more wood. So it's that they would constantly be having to travel back and forth to get this, to be done. And it just doesn't make sense. And like I said before, like we need to like seriously grow up and realize the truth, right? They're not going to tell us, they're always going to say, oh, well, but, or, oh, well, you see, and ignore the physical evidence in front of us, and this is seen, like I said, with the ancient civilizations, advanced ancient civilizations, and even the UFO phenomena, the plasma phenomena, ESP, telepathy, psionics, all of these different things, remote viewing, and it's funny, right? Because we have all of this stuff in front of us that's pretty obvious what we're seeing, and the academic world says, no, can't be done. But then you go into like CIA documents and, where they literally talk about them achieving remote viewing or, oh, an ancient civilization 1 million years old on Mars, and take that with a grain of salt. Yeah, but the evidence is pretty striking, and even like million-year-old civilizations on Earth, which I totally believe. I completely think that was a thing. Like something that really blows my mind to think about that we have physical evidence for is the Zimbabwe wooden architecture that was found. That's like 400,000 years old. This is petrified wood on a riverbed. Like that's incredible. Anatomically correct or structured humans, they've pushed the date back to like 300,000 years, due to like teeth morphology and stuff. Oh, here we go. We got another diagram.
Set the column down on the floor. Instead, it may be something much more interesting, like this.
It's talking about how
the block is actually socketed
blocks
into
the
floor.
Are
so again, you start to ask why. Why were they building with? I mean, that block, once you put it there, it's not going to move, right? What's going to move that block? And yet they seem to have been building for the ages. Like they're socketing this block in. They want it to stay in that spot. It's very interesting. And again, it gives you an insight into the minds of the builders.
Dang.
So here's another look down. You can see the channel. Again, note how strange it is to move around in here. There's all these little alcoves on the right, on the outer wall there. But you have to cross this huge channel. There's no good way to get across it. You basically have to go into the back there and walk.
I really think these are physical technologies or structural technology, right? Like when you look at all these sites, they look like circuit boards of some sort, and they are using these piezoelectric stones, right? Which crystalline inclusions, granite is like 60% quartzite, right? Which has a scientifically proven piezoelectric effect, which can generate plasma orbs or what are they called? Earth lights, right? And then we start getting into intelligent plasma and stuff, which is what Hans Alvin, who was Nobel laureate, who basically studied high electromagnetic energy and was like, these things seem like they're conscious, and that's the assertion of many other people who have studied these, like Salvatore Pais, who has the patents with the Navy for like piezoelectric generators and inertial dampeners. It's unreal, right? Okay, so let's see. Oh, this is showing some of their connections and grooves.
Construction.
And I don't want to play all of this because I think that you guys should go to his channel,
and scoop marks and
their
everything
channel,
like that.
and check it
But
out.
there are these little bitty inserts where they seem to have been maybe correcting a slight air flattened, tightly joined, heterogeneous wall.
Look at how
that maybe would have even had a polished surface. So imagine somebody, this is very similar looking to what you see if somebody's coming along and painting the interior of a room with a roller, a paint roller. The way the marks are ending at the bottom of the flattened section looks a lot like they were using a tool that had it had a particular width, and as they went down, they removed the tool from the wall, they go back up the top, they start removing material. They get down to the bottom, they remove the tool, and
once you start seeing all this evidence, it's not hard to put the pieces together, and it shouldn't take big brains to step outside of the academic narrative and be like, okay, there's obviously something else going on here, right? They weren't doing this with the attributed tools with flint and steel. They weren't chipping away with these grooves where you can see the size of whatever tool they were using, right? It's completely obvious. But, people, they need the hand of Big Brother. They need the hand of the establishment to guide them into whatever truth they want to, push forward, which I think is lazy. And it's a real sign of mental slavery, and I hate the whole like NPC like thing, but it really is when people can't think for themselves and look at the evidence and come to their own conclusion, which, like I said, to me is completely obvious. And I just wanted to share that with all of you guys because, yeah, this is some of the most like staggering evidence just proving that they were highly advanced in the ancient times, and like we'll just go really fast. I showed these in my last video, but these grooves, like what? Oh my gosh. Oh, look at this. Here's more. And I want to say they did that with flint and steel, and they just left these groove-like striations or protrusions, I guess you would say, in there, right? Like, no, man. Like, this is some form of plasma cutting tool. And it's interesting because there's an interview with the surviving alien from Roswell, which I completely think is a very real transcript and document, which you can find on YouTube. You just type in Roswell interview, and it's basically the nurse who was on site after the Roswell crash in 1947 was one of the only people who was able to telepathically communicate with the ISB, which is the term that the alien gave to itself, and basically said that she was they're just conscious entities that are inhabiting these doll bodies, right? Which is basically like what we have found in, this whole UFO phenomena thing. And he talks about, the ancient stuff that's happened on planet Earth. And I've, done some cross-referencing and it all seems to line up. Like, it's pretty crazy. But it said that they used light tools and yeah, that there were no words for plasma in 1947, or maybe, I don't know. But basically how the nurse was able to communicate with the alien is they had to give it a bunch of literature and books so that it can have some form of conceptual reference for how to communicate telepathically, because at first it was only like very rudimentary, yes, no, blah, 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 not really giving any details. So they started giving it books and having it, basically learn our language and find references, and it was able to communicate more fluently. So it's really, really interesting. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and yeah, much love and peace out.